Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Klaudija Cermak. I'm just going to read because I'm known for talking too much, so I'm just going to read and not waste any time. I'm sorry there are no sandwiches yet. We can have them. We can have them after the event, right? We're all hungry, so I'll just get on now. So I'm one of West London board managers. I'm also a program leader for visual effects and compositing lecturer for Nuke and Silhouette at Escape Studios. So I would like to welcome you on behalf of West London to this exciting event, Auto-Roto and Prep in the Age of A.I. I just want to give special thanks to Nas Parker from Amazon and Amazon for hosting us. And also Hugo Guerra, who has been here since 3 o'clock, just setting up all the recordings and everything. So we have an amazing array of speakers. Obviously, we were overbooked already 2 weeks ago, so very popular. So the evening will start with 3 presentations from senior visual effects artists. And then we will have 2 demos of new ML tools from senior developers at the Foundry and Borisfx. And then we'll have Q&A moderated by Saint Walker, postgraduate program leader for media courses, including visual effects and AI at Hertfordshire, and the creator of the core skills of visual effects handbook 2025, which if you haven't, you need to download it. So I leave it to Saint to introduce the speakers as they come up to present, and thank you for coming and enjoy.
Hi folks, thank you very much for coming to this VES event, and just to sort of say, it's kind of divided into 2 halves. The first half we've got presentations and demos, and then we're going to go into a Q&A. We've only got 45 minutes for the Q&A, so we'll probably end up speaking really, really fast, like on YouTube when you increase the speed. But nevertheless, let's start off, and we've got our first guest, the kind of Renaissance man himself, and that's Hugo Guerra, VFX content creator, as if people didn't know, at Hugo's desk, and for the last 25 years, award-winning director and VFX supervisor. Former head of Nuke at the Mill. Another of his accolades is former director at Fire Without Smoke and VFX supervisor for Sony PlayStation, and of course co-host of VFX Notes podcast with Ian Fales from Befores and After. So Hugo, come on down, first speaker. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that lovely intro. So welcome everyone. I'm going to do a very short presentation because there's a lot of things to see today, and so I only have a few things to show and to talk. But as Saint said, I'm a director and visual effects supervisor. I'm originally Portuguese, if you guys don't know. I was born in Porto. I really advise you to go to Porto, just not because I was born there, but it's a lovely city as well. And I've worked in a lot of different places for the last 25 years. I've worked at Nexus, at the Mill, Fire Without Smoke, Rebellion Studios, and London Studio from PlayStation, and also PlayStation San Diego as well, and worked for a variety of clients. Lately, I've been mostly working in the games industry. I've done a lot of cinematic and a lot of trailers. I split my life between doing VFX supervision and also directing cinematics and also comping them as well, because I think most people know me in the industry because of Nuke as well. So the last one I did was a Sniper Elite 5. Because this is such a short presentation, I did a short reel. It's a really fast short reel, just like those YouTube videos that you watch in 3 speeds. It's only a 33-second short reel. So here it is. This is my short reel of my latest work.
In the shadows, where most get when they get into the face of impossible objects, no one else.
Yep, that's it. I guess we live in a fast world now, so I have to do a fast short reel. So today I want to talk about Roto and Prep in the Age of AI, and this is kind of a journey that I've been doing for the last few months, since I really wanted to know if CopyCat and machine learning was actually possible to use in production, if it actually was worth it. And so, especially because we are, there's AI slop everywhere, and we are constantly bombarded with AI and with Gen AI and with promises that everything is going to be amazing and everything is going to be automatic. And so I really wanted to dig deep into that. And so, unfortunately, I have some good news and I have some bad news. That's what I wanted to show today. And so, basically, the good news is that the bad news is that you probably still need to rotoscope in the future. The good news is that you're going to have to rotoscope less. That's kind of the thing that I want to transmit here today. Now, I don't have a fancy project like some of my fellow speakers to show because, NDAs, and I can't really show everything that I'm working on. So because I couldn't really do that, and because I wanted to do all these videos on YouTube showing CopyCat and showing how it was working, I kind of figured, let me go back into my older projects, since I have permission for those, and see what could be done there. And so I brought two scenarios for me to share with you today. And so first scenario was a short film I did a long time ago. It was a short film directed by Pilo Lavosi, and it was called Baby Teeth. And this short film is basically like a really strange short film where people have their teeth removed and they have baby teeth. And so we had to track and rotoscope every single shot so we can replace the teeth of the people with baby teeth. And so it was an incredibly hard project to do at the time when we did it. There wasn't any fancy machine learning and CopyCat at the time. And so we basically like had this problem. We had all these faces to track, to rotomate, and to put CG in the teeth, and basically I think it took months to do all of this. This is like a 5-minute long short film. It has over 50 shots where everyone had their teeth like this removed. And because of this, of course, we had to put tracking markers on their faces. And so, of course, back in the day, back then, how was this done? Back then, we had to do prep in Roto, and for each shot, it took maybe 2 days. And so the whole process would be, we had to rotoscope and we have to track it, and we have to manually this is the original comps that were done at the time. We had to remove it, we had to undistort the plate first, and then we would have to track each individual tracking marker, and then some of the tracks didn't work and others worked, and it was always a huge process to go through this. And then some of it worked with using the marker removal node, which is really good in Nuke. But of course, it wasn't perfect, and so sometimes we had to do it by hand. So we ended up having to do this entire script, track by track. But now, I was kind of considering to myself, okay, so this is what I did at the time, and how fast or how good would it be if I would try to deploy CopyCat on this specific project, pretending that I'm doing it now. And so now we go to the future, which is where we are now in the year 2000. And so started studying Category and started studying machine learning and CopyCat and see what could help me to try to do this. I stumbled upon, of course, the one that was the first option for me to really start thinking about this was the Llama Category CopyCat script that was there from the Foundry. And so I downloaded that, and of course, I really want to emphasize this on this presentation, that you really have to be careful with all these category models, because they do have, they were trained with something. I know it's a bit hard to know where it came from, the data, but it's always very important for you to really know where the data came from. So I really recommend always, whenever using these models, go and try to go deep. Before you do it with a client of yours, try to go deep into who created it, who did it, what model they used, how they did the training, just so you can have a clear view if you're basically doing something that you'll regret it later. This is going to be a common thread through my presentation. And so I ended up going back and using just like this node, just automatically. And I was quite impressed. It wasn't automatic because, of course, nothing is automatic. I still had to track the areas that I wanted to clean. So I still had to use the tracking data, track them, use some rough roto masks, and then feed that into the Llama model. And that gave me the cleanup. And it was really effective. It was super effective. It actually worked really well. And it only took like 2 hours to do. So I'm now going from 2 days to 2 hours on this single shot. But again, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. So be careful with all these models because where do they come from? Nobody knows. So we need to be careful with that, especially when we're working with clients. Because remember, this is just a short film. No one cares. But if you're working with IP and with a lot of other clients, it's probably best for you to either do your own models or to really search and research. And if you're in a big company, maybe talk with the lawyer of the company and see what can be done. With that in mind, I decided to also give it a go with CopyCat itself. And so that meant that with CopyCat, I would be doing my own model for doing the same exact shot. And so what I did was I developed a system where I kind of painted only 4 frames. And so the entire sequence is 100 frames or something. I think it's 100 frames. I can't read it from now. I'm getting old. I can't really read the text from here. But it's bigger than 5 frames. So I picked up 4 frames, painted 4 frames really meticulously and well painted. Took me like a couple of hours, and then let it run. And basically I let it run for a few hours. I think it was like 3 hours of machine learning in the background. And then I went and did my other things. I think I went to dinner and then I came back after. And the result was really astonishing. I kind of actually got the same exact result as Llama, but of course it was the auto processing on my computer. So instead of only taking 2 hours to do roto and painting on the other shot with Llama, and then it took like 5 minutes to render, now we're talking about painting those frames that took maybe, I don't know, maybe it took like a couple of hours to paint the 5 frames. And then after that, I had to process it for like 3 or 4 hours. But of course, you can do something else, or you can leave it on the background. I really advise you to having a second machine. A second machine is actually the best way to do that. And so the result of this was kind of this kind of stats. I kind of counted all the hours, and the original prep and paint of that specific shot took about 2 hours, 2 days. The CopyCat prep and paint was about 2 hours to actually paint the frames that I still needed. That's why I was saying in the beginning that you still need to paint and you still need to roto, because you still need to do a good job with those 5 frames. And then of course the processing was about 2 hours. So then we went from 2 days to 4 hours, and that's with processing. So in a way, and then of course, oh, sorry. Oh, the 10 minutes are already over. Look at that. We're really gonna rush now. Give me 2 more minutes. So basically I then ended up thinking, okay, what can I do with this? Because I processed all of this thing. And so can I use it in other shots? And yes, you can. So I basically picked up the same machine learning data, processed it with extra frames from the other takes, and ended up having a great way of actually processing all the shots in one go. It wasn't perfect. Some shots failed. Some shots failed ridiculously bad. Some of them went really off. And so not everything was a smooth operation. Some shots failed, and so I had to do specific copycats just for those. But I would say out of the 6 shots that I did, I ended up having maybe half of them that were perfect, and the other half I had to do adjustments and I had to do painting. So again, now we're having an improvement of half of the time, but half of the time for 5 shots. And so remember, we now have to start considering maybe different ways of quoting things, because we basically, instead of quoting shot by shot, we need to start quoting by sequence. So we kind of okay, this is a sequence. It has 7 shots with the same lady. And so maybe I need to paint really well one of them. And then maybe I'll be lucky that machine learning can pick up the rest of the slack. And so I'm kind of starting to think that maybe you can end up with having a third of the quote that you had before. And so I did exactly the same thing with this shot as well, by the way. I'm not going to do that because it's too late. And so if you want to see that, you can go to my YouTube channel. I've done streams about that. And so, because you see, this is the funny thing. We're doing a presentation about CopyCat, which takes ages, 6 hours. And I only have 15 minutes. And so, of course, I'm not going to be able to show you everything. So go there. And really quickly, I also did the second scenario. I did a rotoscoping shot, which I actually did at the mill when I was still there. And this was years ago. This was 12 years ago, I think. And at the time, we sent this rotoscoping to Trace VFX to be rotoed, and it came back. And so I wanted to see how much close could I get to Trace VFX, the roto that did it at the time, just using CopyCat. And so I rotoscoped only 5 frames really well, one motion blurred, one non-motion blurred, and I got pretty close. I got really close. I didn't really get perfect with the roto, but I think it was in a production level already, and then I could pick up the rest and tweak it. And of course, the last scenario I want to show is, of course, the wonderful one-button scenario that everyone is dreaming about from machine learning. And so this is, of course, what we call the VitMat, and which is also another model that is on CopyCat. Again, be careful with all the licensing and the responsibility on that. And this one was the one that failed the most for me, because again, it's a one-click scenario. You just basically do a core mat, and you do an outside mat, and then hope for the best, and it doesn't have any settings, and then it makes a roto automatically. It gave me an okay result. I mean, it gave me, something I could work with, as you can see, especially because it's a one-click wonder, but it still wasn't really perfect. Again, you can watch all of this on my YouTube. So in conclusion, with all of this and that I've investigated, yes, you can have more time to do more shots, but you're going to have more work because now they're going to give you more shots to do. Also, you still have to work with clients, and you never really know what they want, and you kind of are always trying to find out what they want. So you still have that problem. And now you have an extra thing you need to do. You need to be a render wrangler, because what I felt when I was doing all of these rotos and CopyCat processing, I felt like I was a render manager for CG, because I was just processing clips and leaving them rendering on another machine, and then leaving on this machine, and then getting another machine here to render. And then I would gather the CopyCat result, and then I really felt like I was rendering on a farm and trying to get the frames to work, and this frame didn't work, and that frame didn't work. And then I had to get a render manager tool to manage all these machines. Yeah, and of course, none of it still is perfect. You still need to fix it. So in conclusion, surprise, surprise, you still need to roto and paint. You still actually need to paint and roto really well. But of course, now you kind of need to do it with only 5 or 6 frames, and then you can kind of conclude. But this is a really short presentation that I'm just talking really in broad strokes. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see a lot more complete information about these streams, because the 2 streams I did were 3 hours long, so you can watch them there on YouTube, on my channel, Hugo's Desk, and that's it, really. So, yeah. Go to Hugo's Desk. Yeah, I'll put my clapping as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugo. Thanks. And it's great to start off with a real practical example and a real practical test.
Is that annoying?
Yes. It's what I've come to expect, Hugo, so don't worry. Thank you very much.
10 minutes is so short, isn't it? How do you do anything on 10 minutes?
So I'm now going to call our second, I was going to say witness. It does feel a bit like that. But this is Adam Walker, who's the Roto Paint Supervisor at Untold Studios, with over a decade of VFX experience across film, episodic, advertising and music videos. He's passionate about developing efficient workflows in Roto Paint, hence his involvement with what might be possible in the age of AI. And he matches the latest technology with traditional techniques. So, Adam, come on down. "15 minutes.
Can you do my makeup as well?
Sorry.
This is going to work seamlessly. Just going to stare at you, Naz, for a minute.
Hooray! Well, there's actually quite a lot of people in here, isn't there? Right, so apparently I need to be quick, right, Saint? Yeah, you want me to be? Okay, I'll try and be as quick as I can with it still giving you guys some interesting stuff to talk about. So, Roto and Paint in the Age of AI. Yes, I'm calling it Paint. Some people call it Prep. Untold, we're calling it paint, and that's what I'm going to do for this presentation. So, have you ever done roto before? I have. It's quite a lot. I think everybody knows if you're going to roto something, probably going to take a long time. So every time I'm looking at these tools, I'm trying to see what problem are we solving. It's obviously the speed and the cost that comes with doing a lot of roto. So yeah, over the last few years, been a lot of meetings with companies, internal meetings, just talking to people. I'm sure everyone here has done the same. We are constantly talking about AI now. So just more so in the last year, we've done a lot of tests with CopyCat, Silhouette, Slapshot, and now a lot more with Comfy UI. Obviously, I'm going to focus more just on roto in my chat because I've only been given 15 minutes. So yeah, early on, the tests we were doing, the main thing we found is we need artist intervention. It needs to be a tool for artists to use, not just you're clicking, you're getting a matte, it's done. Even when you are doing that, again, the results just aren't good enough. So I think it's very important just to think about what your values are, what Untold's values are. So we're very much about enhancing artists, allowing artists to be as creative as they want to be, give them the time and the space to do that. I'm very much about nurturing new talent. I love teaching people. I'm sure it's generally what I love about the VFX industry. We are always learning new technology and sharing that with people. Again, that applies to the innovation. And again, I've already mentioned the speed, so I'll try and keep this presentation speedy. And then technology as well. Naz, apparently you helped us with getting AWS, so we're fully cloud-based studio, all our machines in the cloud. And again, that applied very much to ML and AI tools. We can increase the specs of our machines at a moment's notice. So this kind of all leads me on to Borisfx Silhouette. Obviously, we're testing lots of tools. Silhouette is what we've mostly been using. So why Silhouette? Obviously, in my opinion, it's the industry standard for roto. It's what I teach everybody to use. It's really good for roto. I'm sure a lot of people agree with me. And again, that links back to when we use these ML tools, we were finding we were always bringing the mats into Silhouette, finishing them, getting them up to the standard we needed. Again, a lot of this is just general stuff. The pipeline integration, very important. Interaction refinement, again, artists need to be able to put stuff into the tool, know what they're putting in, and then be able to adjust it, give more to the model. Let's see what it does. It's not completely break. And again, that's been very touch and go over the last year, but it is getting better. Borisfx are great. They're great at communicating. Showing us how the models work is very, very important. They've been doing a lot of that. And also it's very, very important about the development, knowing if you're going to work with a company that they are going to invest in these new tools and keep up with the current tools. As everyone knows, it's advancing very quickly. So just knowing that is coming helps a lot. And then the same data security. We do not share any of our clients' work outside of Untold. It has to stay in the company, and that's what Silhouette allows. So what are we using ML tools for? So obviously, we would used to just garbage roto something, and that was what we would use to kind of maybe if we're going to pitch to a client and show them this is kind of what it's going to look like. So we've kind of got this beautiful middle ground now with these ML tools where we can give a really good garbage map. So pitching test shots sequences, absolutely. I do want to, obviously I'm saying we're using it for this. This is an artist using the tool to generate these mats. You can see from some of these examples from Heads of State here, an artist has gone in and added roto shapes to tidy it up. Obviously this was on an older model, but still. Yeah, adding flying debris, muzzle flashes, smoke, snow, and then we're starting to do it with grading now. Just anytime you do not need a perfect matte, we will always try an ML first and see where we get. A lot of the times we are falling back on, obviously, the traditional techniques of just, let's just do the entire shot in roto. So obviously NDA, I'm not allowed to show anything that we're currently working on. So I've made a lovely little case study of a little badger. So let's say we've got this project, client comes to us, like, I've got this badger project. And we're like, okay. Then VFX Soup comes to me and says, we want to show them something really, really quick and pitch the idea and win the work. So that's absolutely where ML tools are, and we're finding more and more now that we're using them. So say we have this shot. I hope everyone loves looking at badges as much as me, because we're going to be looking at this quite a bit now. So yeah, so originally we would just draw around it. I'm very aware it says human garbage there. Garbage is very much, I want to clarify, garbage is when we just do quick roto. It's a garbage mat, it's throwaway work. Yeah. So you do the garbage mat, and you put it over this lovely duck pond. The client looks at it, they're very distracted. You can see their previous background, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's okay. It's what we used to do. So then you get onto the ML garbage. So this is just an example of me just clicking twice, getting the mat. I did also you can prompt in Silhouette. I did prompt and test it and put in dog. It did find this mat as well. So yeah, I'm sure Marco will explain all of that later. You can see from this mat, you are getting popping. You are not getting the fine detail. You can put it over the shot. Looks a lot better than before, right? Then you can start refining it. So here I'm just using the ML Refine to get some of those hair details, a little bit of the motion blur, and just, again, try and tighten it and make it look a bit better. So yeah, using it for smoke, for example, we can try that, see what kind of result we get from that. Again, an artist will be going in and finessing the mat. We are losing a lot of the fine hair detail and the motion blur. And then say the client wanted the badger to look a bit more like a mallard duck. We can do it. I really love this mat because I just did one quick click. Oh, well, sorry. I painted the alpha for this one, sorry. Tried getting it to not do the eye. And yeah, it propagated beautifully across the shot. Beautifully being for the purpose of trying to grade it to present to a client quickly. Obviously, there's still a lot here that is missing. It's still including bits that we maybe don't want it to. And again, you can see from the eye popping on and off there, we would probably have said to the artist, like, can you tidy up the eye? And yeah, we can just grade it, and he looks a little bit more like a mallard. So maybe the client's looking and going, yeah, the badger thinks he's a duck. So we're kind of getting the story across. So yeah, obviously there are a lot of limitations with the ML tools, and it's been very interesting using these tools and trying to figure out what is our workflow, where does it fit into our workflow. Obviously, at the beginning of a pipeline, we may as well try it. It's quick. Let's just get in there, and then we will try and test and see where is it breaking. And obviously, we are not getting high quality mats from it. We're getting high quality garbage. It's not final roto. We're always relying. If we want final roto, an artist will do it. As you saw, inconsistency, the frame per frame popping. There's boiling. Again, there are ways to try and mitigate that, and again, it takes an artist time to do that. There are a lot of best practices with rotos. I'm sure anyone's roto, you need to make sure you get your edges right. Comp expect a certain level of what the edge is. Obviously, some people have varying opinions on where the line should be on an edge, but we need to make sure we have that control in these ML tools to try and just reach those best practices. Object permanence is quite a big thing. As you saw on the example, when the badger went behind the wood in the foreground, the mat disappears. That is another example where we would go in and fill it in ourselves. Again, a high motion blur. When you saw the edge of the badger kind of, when he moved around, his hair disappears from the plate, the ML tool just gives up and doesn't put it in there. So again, we would be adding it in ourselves. And again, the same applies to light wrap, motion blur. Hardware is quite a big thing. As I said, we can increase the specs of our machine, but there is a cost associated with that we need to always keep in account. So the future, What did you say, Hugo? You said we're still not gonna need people, right? Yeah. Okay. I absolutely agree. But we need to keep talking about these tools, see where they fit, try them in production, and absolutely just make sure that the next generation and the old generation, we've got some incredible people at Untold, we need to learn these tools. They do help. And yeah, I think it will be traditional roto and paint combined with these ML tools. Have I got 15 minutes? Okay, cool. The end. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Adam. More meat and potatoes for you to real practical examples and case studies. Next is Simon Carr, Creative Director and VFX Supervisor at VineFX, who create high-quality visual effects. Simon has contributed to projects at some of the world's most renowned studios, and I hope this doesn't make him feel old, because it includes Animal Logic, Framestore, Method Studios, and the Magic Camera Company. So, Simon, please come up here and give your presentation.
Thank you. The only thing that makes me feel old is being old, I think. Okay, so now I have to see whether this is going to magically work as well. This will be my... Do I need to escape it and then start again, do you think? That's telling... See, that's when we tried it before and it worked. You didn't see any of that. Okay. Well, that's sort of slightly shaming. But anyway, good evening. For those who don't know me, my name is Simon Carr. I'm the Creative Director at VineFX. I've been a VFX supervisor for over 25 years and a compositor before that. And in that time, I've seen a large number of changes and often improvements in tools and processes. From Quantel to the arrival of Flame, Shake and eventually Nuke, roto and tracking tools and better pipelines and workflows. And the one constant is that without human beings, none of it really works. VineFX is an independent award-winning VFX studio based in Cambridge. Driven by the talent and passion of our artists and production crew, we create seamless visual effects to enhance storytelling and captivate audiences. Our recent shows include The Amateur, starring Rami Malek, Netflix Witcher Season 4, and on Amazon Prime we have Rig Season 2, which has just been nominated for an RTS award, Harlan Coben's Lazarus, and All Over Buses Everywhere Malice, and much more to come in the new year. So earlier this year we were also pleased to have an opportunity to contribute towards Netflix's House of Guinness, for a few sequences which essentially needed SFX atmosphere balancing across shots. These range from dense fog at a quayside and in the dockside around to more subtle enhancements to fire smoke and more general atmosphere. On this slide, which is just a little bit in the middle, is an example of a shot in which we needed to add considerable levels of fog and to stack it in depth. Unfortunately, in this case, the Auto-Roto tool completely failed to isolate the figure of a man behind the gate, mainly because you can't see him. But that's one of those, which, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. But we did find it useful in lots of other shots. As you can see from the plate on screen left, there was some practical smoke on set, and in some of the setups there was a perfect level of atmospheric fog in camera. There were others where, as is so often the case, the SFX fog had cleared too much of the performance, but the performances were preferred. We were tasked with evening the shots out, but having real-world targets helped enormously. It's always useful when you've got the right amount of, when you know what you're trying to match, it's always useful. Given the number of shots and a relatively compressed timescale to achieve them, and having been looking into some of the Nuke and Silhouette ML tools, we decided to test the possibility of using Auto-Roto and Auto-Depth Queue to see how they would help. The results of these tools were variable, But as the tests were of a wider interest to the team, we had a week put aside for R&D at the start of the schedule in order to try the tools without pressure to produce a final result. The plan was to work out how and where or whether they would be useful. Alongside this test, we also began rotoscoping work in the traditional way, so as not to lose time hoping for the best. And because the nature of the footage, being dark, often smoky and with shallow depth of field, was clearly going to be a challenge for the tools to deal with. I will share a few examples just to illustrate the challenges and benefits that we discovered. And when I do this, I'm going to have to see if I can loop stuff. So bear with me if I'm trying to move my cursor to the screen. So this is a, right, can I get my cursor on there? Ah, yeah, there you go. Look at that. Come on. Look, oh, damn. Loop. There you go. And now I have pressed play. Look at that. Perfect. So here's a good illustration of one of the challenges. This was a relatively successful example for the AI Roto mat, which is the top one. However, it has a much more inconsistent depth mat. As you can see, the bottom, pretty much useless. The Roto mat was generated in silhouette on a denoise plate using the nodes Easy Mask ML and Matte Assist ML to get a quick test result to help with developing a look to match other shots in the same sequence with practical atmospheric fog. In this instance, we tried but didn't have sufficient time to experiment much with the optical flow ML tools to generate smart vectors for matte motion blur, and decided it would be more viable to hand a solid matte to a compositor to use in the look development stage. This example still required some additional tidying up of the roto, notably around the hat region, as well as helping with the amount of perspective change as the actor in the shot completes a 180-degree turn. So, I mean, essentially it did a pretty good job. It's just that, as you see, you've got a black hat against black background. It's always going to be a bit of a challenge. Okay, I'm going to try again now. Come on. Look at that. Almost professional. In this second example, the depth mat was much more successful on the bottom here. This was generated using the Depth Anything V2 model from Foundry's category, which had been used on, which was also used on the previous example. So you can see it's kind of a little bit hit and miss. So sometimes it'll get you what you need and sometimes it won't. The roto this time, however, required much more intervention, as the foreground obstruction of the metal gate caused the tools in silhouette to struggle to keep a constant edge, and the object form was very chattery. In the final version of the manual roto, we had the control of being able to separate different sections off via various channels, like the lantern handle and the actor's arm, which again, when you're doing in smoke, is very useful. Whereas the result from the Auto-Roto tool was just a single solid output. You know, we may have been able to develop that further, but just not in the time we had. Okay, this one is going to be really challenging. Did it? Perfect. Okay, so this is a sort of exploded view of the process for one of the more successful examples of the shots using the tools. The roto from the tool works well for a temp. So the top version is the auto, and then below it is a corrected version. The same here. So it works well for temp, but it's too unstable for the final. The depth pass similarly needed to be adjusted. Roto was manually tweaked, which basically means somebody rotoed it. And for the depth pass, a mix of vector blending to blend flickering frames and manual tweaking for troublesome shapes. The vector blending was a technique we started using on 360 driving plates. So whenever the camera rig goes under a tree, it gives an exposure flicker. And because somebody asked me before, it's vector frame blend, which you can find in Wikipedia. The fog passes were achieved with layers of 2D elements controlled by a combination of roto and depth and deep compositing. The observations from one of our senior artists involved in the tests were that we found that the current AI tools on the market for roto are very much there to help aid the artists with their work rather than taking work away from the artists. We found there are occasions in which these tools really have helped in guiding the creative process, especially at the start of the project. It means we can get going quicker. It allows us to get early look dev versions and tests started much more quickly, which I think is the same point. We use them to see if certain approaches may or may not work, and have often been pleasantly surprised with the results. We did find on some occasions, depending on the shot, large parts of this generated auto-roto would be okay and would pass QC, saving time and meaning that we may only have to hand-roto parts of the shot. But in general, the AI roto being generated would only get us so far. The majority of time, we found that when tech checking these comps, at the final stage, they would not pass QC, and the final delivery roto would still need the talents of a roto artist. Our conclusions are that AI roto is a powerful assistant, but it's not perfect. It still struggles with complex creative challenges, like motion blur, fine details, complex occlusions, transparent or reflective surfaces, poorly lit or grainy footage, and we found that AI lacks the creative instinct and contextual understanding of a human artist at the moment. I mean, I'm guessing some of that may change, but that's one of the main things, is you can say to it, it doesn't understand if you say, I need the top hat. It doesn't really understand, but a human being understands a top hat. And it also probably understands the way a top hat moves when the character changes direction. So, probably similarly in a kind of a NDA type world, Vine have also historically done a lot of prep work, from simple to complex. We use both DMP and prep artists, and it would be easy to underestimate how involved that work often is. So far, we've not found a tool which is either as fast or reliable as a competent artist for large-scale prep, and since all automated work would need QC and potential amendments, it's generally more cost-effective to just get the job done once properly in the first place. Although we've begun further testing of some of these tools in production, it's only in projects that we can't share. So as an illustration of some of the potential promise and pitfalls, we ran a quick test on a shot that Vine previously completed for the Serpent. On screen left are the original plate and final cleaned up version from the project. So on that far end there. And so obviously that was all completed by hand. And on screen right, 2 attempts, very, very quick attempts, so we're not being completely fair about this, from the ML tools. So what I found fascinating was the top one. It's done a pretty good job of removing some of the cabling, but it hasn't realised you need to disguise the fact that the harness is still attached to the human. And weirdly, in a straight comparison, it's also really subtly altered the creases in his shirt and the colour of the shirt and the weave of the fabric. And obviously that's not going to pass. Somebody does a straight comparison with the plate. And it's also removed the foreground screen left branch. It's not removed them over the complex bits of the leaves, which is like a lot of artists, so that'd be fine. But this is, and then the bottom one, I'm literally just sharing as an example of hallucination. So I have absolutely no idea why the screen right figure is standing on water. It's that very strange. I'm just going to introduce some feet. Of course, in the hands of experienced artists, many of these limitations would be less important because you direct the tools towards specific areas and specific tasks, and we would avoid the issues I've identified. And I think in the hands of an experienced compositor, I can see them being really helpful for small or quick fixes during shot work. But for complex work like this and the level of QC that it would be subjected to, I would still question whether it would be quicker than a manual cleanup. We have, however, oh gosh, I'm going to have to go really quick now. Right, okay. We have, however, successfully used machine learning tools for other tasks, such as in a series of shots for Harlan Coben's Lazarus, currently showing on Amazon Prime, in which we were asked to de-age characters. This is one of the characters, Margot, played by the wonderful Amanda Root. These shots used a couple of techniques, but in the main utilised Nuke's CopyCat tool to apply de-aged frames across the sequence, trained on a few key frames painted by the artist. I'd also caution that this work was completed by a couple of very good compers, so it's not plug and play, but it was very fast. So the screen right is a couple of stills from a very successful output once it had the right reference frames. The running version is more complex. CopyCat struggles, especially if anything is partially obscured, with her face or as she turned her head. But we did find that we got improved outputs from CopyCat if we stabilised her face so certain features appeared to remain fixed in place across the duration of a shot before restoring the shot motion. And some observations from our senior compositor, who is most involved with the category testing. His main takeaway is that despite the current lag and unpredictability in AI-generated outputs, these tools already give us an advantage. Even when the results require tweaking, we still end up ahead compared to doing everything manually. We're sure everyone is already adopting workflows that open up more creative possibilities, and as the technology evolves, these tools are on track to become core components of every artist's daily toolkit. But my only caveat to that is that's the thoughts of a senior artist who's very good at this stuff. So other people may not find it quite as useful. So then, this is just a very quick overview, and ahead of time really. So we do have an internal R&D TD at Vine, which is quite unusual, and he has been working on a series of Gaussian splatting and de-aging face replacement tools. So we are looking at other broader machine learning AI tools, but they're all similar, sort of in progress. They'll be interesting over time, but right now maybe you still need a lot of human intervention. And those, if you've got time.
Thank you, Simon. And already we're seeing a lot of evidence-based work and people trying out things and what's happening now rather than the usual sort of propaganda we get about how amazing this stuff will be in the future. So thank you very much, Simon. We're now going to move to a sort of even more evidence from a demo from Paul Ringue. He's a senior creative specialist in learning and development at Foundry. Paul specialises in teaching VFX software and creating tutorials for Nuke and Mari. Previously, Paul was a compositor and CG generalist, and as Klaudija has put down here, he's also an alumnus, I should say, of Escape Studios. Paul, come on down and demo away. Thank you.
Hello, hello. All right, so today for the Foundry side, so I'm joined with Adam Cherbetji, who's on Zoom, and he'll be able to answer questions later on. And he's the Principal Product Manager for Machine Learning at Foundry. And then there's me, so I'm Paul Ringue, and I'm a Creative Specialist in Learning and Development at Foundry. And so I first started my career as a paint and roto artist, so I can definitely relate to the fears that artists are having, especially in this field at the moment. So I'm going to talk about 3 different things. So first of all, the worries of AI. So what kind of worries are artists having at the moment in this field? And also afterwards, we're going to look at all the current machine learning tools that we have, especially at Foundry, and also the limitations that AI has. And then last but not least, I have a little surprise. So the machine learning team at Foundry have been working on a really cool tool, but you'll only get to see it at the end of this talk. So what are the worries around AI? So many artists in Paint and Roto are understandably worried that AI might replace their jobs, but what we're actually seeing, especially on the Foundry side, is that most AI tools still offer very limited control. So that's one of the biggest issues with AI. You get a result, but it's often hard to adjust or refine, especially in high-end film and TV, and also on movies, where you really need quite a high standard when it comes to the output. So in fact, to make these tools usable in production, and to fix the issues that AI introduces, you often need a lot of roto prep, not less. So like clean plates, accurate roto, and solid training data. So while the traditional role of roto and prep might be changing, it's not disappearing, it's evolving, becoming focused on preparing and guiding AI rather than being replaced by it. So at Foundry, we've been experimenting with a mix of really cool tools that bring machine learning into the workflow. So we've had them for a while now, and they're starting to be used quite a lot in production, as seen earlier in this talk. So the 2 main ones we have are CopyCat and the category models. So these are very powerful, but they still depend heavily on good prep before and after to make them work. So, CopyCat. So that's the first example. So With CopyCat, you're literally training the model yourself as an artist. So it learns from the ground truths you provide, so that means it's only as smart as the data you give it. So while it can automate a lot of repetitive tasks, it still needs your input to adapt to each new shot or challenge. So that's why you think of it not as a replacement, but as an assistant. So I have some really cool examples of CopyCat in action. So on Dune 2, it supported 2 major roto and paint tasks. So if you've seen Dune, you'll know that there's the Fremen people who have piercing blue eyes. And so for the work grading the eyes, a lot of roto had to be done for the eyes. So the team already knew that they would be handling 4 times more roto on the second movie, Dune 2. And doing that amount of work manually would have taken an enormous amount of time. And this was made possible by using CopyCat to amplify the work done by the artists. So artists would train CopyCat on the roto done on the first film, so you could automate a lot of the work on Dune 2. Artists still supervised everything, and for frames where AI struggled, which were quite a few, corrections were made by artists and fed back into the model to strengthen it further. So here you can have a look at it in action. So here you can see one of the Fremen people with his piercing blue eyes. And then the roto that was created, so it's 3 different layers. So you have different IDs, so blue, green, and red. And here you can see the results. And then this is the footage it was trained on. So here you can see CopyCat in action. So we have the source frames and then the output that we want CopyCat to learn, so to create that roto. And here, in a few seconds, we can see it on a bunch of other shots as well. So here you can see all the data that was fed into CopyCat. That's quite interesting. And then you'd create an inference node, and then you'd apply that training across the sequence, and it would apply that effect across the rest of the shots, eliminating a lot of work that would have otherwise been needed. And the same approach was used for a tattoo removal shot. So a sequence was shot with an infrared camera, which revealed tattoos under makeup. So artists would paint a limited set of clean frames and then train CopyCat on those examples, and the model learned to reproduce that same texture with lighting and motion changes across the shot. And again, artists stepped in to refine the few areas where the AI struggled. So the key takeaway here, though, is that for every task, artists still have to guide CopyCat by showing it exactly what the correct result looks like on project-specific examples. So the intelligence comes entirely from the artist. CopyCat is just really good at repeating what you teach it. And then we have our second really exciting resource, which is the Katru page, which is a library of open source machine learning models which have been converted to run directly in Nuke. So we've seen a few of them in a few of the talks before. So these models allow you to generate a bunch of different things, so human mats out of real life footage, as well as depth passes, ID maps, style transfer, smart vector generation, denoising, upscaling, and a lot more. And many of these have been used a lot in production. And whenever there's a better model, every now and then we'll pop them onto a platform. And so 2 of the main ones are ModNets, which we've seen before, very useful for garbage mats at the moment. And then we have VIP mats, which is a newer one, which gives you a little bit more control because it uses your roto to basically help the AI out. And you can also reduce the opacity of shapes to get finer edges, etc. And then we've got depth models, so like Midas, which is a newer one. Oh no, like Midas, and then we have a newer one, which is Depth Pro, which I'm going to introduce you to. And this one is actually really cool because it produces far cleaner edges and much better fine detail. But of course, like a lot of AI, you need a lot of work to eliminate flickering inconsistencies, but they're still really useful for a bunch of things, and that's what I'm going to have a look at with you guys right now. So first of all, I'm just going to do a comparison between Midas, which is the older version, and now Depth Pro. And as you can see, especially around the gun, we're getting a lot more detail. So what do you use these depth passes for? So if we take this shot here, So it's a soldier in the woods, and I've created a AI-generated depth pass where it can be used to defocus your scene more, to change the focal spots, focal points. So if you wanted to change the focus to something else, depending on how sharp your sequence is. And then you have other things like adding smoke and fog, and you can also relight your shots using these depth passes. And if you want to learn how to implement these tools into your workflow, we have 2 really exceptional courses by Dune and Cruiser. So the first one is for roto and paint automation using CopyCat in combination with ModNet. And then the second one shows you how to use AI-generated depth passes to add effects to your scene, like we saw in the previous example. So these 2 courses are great examples of how to use these tools to combine AI automation with artist control. And now for the last bit of this presentation, the moment we've all been waiting for. So this is what the research team at Foundry have been working a lot on at the moment, which is Smart Roto. So this is still a very early alpha, and the UI is subject to change. But this completely changes how we think about rotoscoping. So with traditional rotoscoping, you often end up with hundreds of keyframes on complex shots, keeping into account motion, perspective, 3D rotation, especially complex shots where tracking the plate doesn't fully cut it. And so with Smart Roto, instead of manually repositioning shapes and splines across multiple frames and tracking multiple sections of an actor by moving groups, you'd ideally rotoscope just a few frames, and Smart Roto does the rest, intelligent tracking multiple movement groups, interpolating and adapting. Having said that, depending on how complex your shot is, you might have to add a few keyframes to guide it at the beginning. But the difference here is that you are training it, meaning drastically reducing the amount of total keyframes needed the more you advance through the shot. And the key difference here, in comparison to your usual AI-generated mats, like ModNet, for example, is control. So if the AI result isn't perfect, you still have all the splines you can refine, adjust, and tweak just like normal. So it's machine learning automation with human control. And because revisions and changes can be applied non-destructively, it fits into existing film and TV pipelines. So rather than replacing Roto, Smart Roto makes it more efficient, making it faster, more intelligent, and still fully artist-driven. So now I'm going to show you a little demo of the tool in action. So I've recorded this bit, so I'm just going to put the volume up. So now I'm going to demo Smart Roto for you. Again, just to reiterate, this is an alpha version, so it's still work in progress. And so here I've chosen a plate with a sheriff who's been shot and is lying on the floor, and as you can see, there's different moving parts, and you can see there's flashing lights as well, which adds another level of difficulty. So first I need to create a roto node, so I'm just going to press O for the shortcut and then attach it to my plate. So if you have Smart Roto installed, you'll see there's a brand new tab in your properties called Smart Roto, and this is where you're going to manage all its different settings, which we'll briefly look at later on. Then, just like you would usually do as a roto artist, you'd break down the subject into smaller independent shapes, so each part can move, bend, and rotate on its own. Using many smaller shapes helps Smart Roto adjust each part accurately and maintain consistent results. And the relationship between those shapes are also valuable information for the model. So in this example, I'm cutting out the head and the headphones, as well as the microphone on the side. So I'm just going to do it on one frame, so I'm choosing a frame where all the different elements that I want to cut out are quite clear in the footage. Ideally, you just want to put one frame and then Smart Roto would do the rest. But if you have a complex shot with a lot of motion, you might want to add a few more frames. So here I'm adding just 2 to show you how to do it. When adding new keyframes, there's a really awesome shortcut, which is the Roto Current Frame button. So what it'll do is it will try to position your roto for you to save you even more time. And then you can tweak it until the shape is perfect. So an important piece of information before we let Smart Roto do its magic is that keyframes that you add yourself are called user keys, and they're represented in dark blue on the timeline. User keys are treated as sacred by Smart Roto and are used to drive its predictions. So now let's let Smart Roto do its magic by pressing on Roto Sequence. So you can see it has generated loads of light blue keyframes over the timeline. So those are the predicted keys calculated by SmartRoto. And if we look at the results, you can see it's doing a pretty awesome job at tracking the different sections of the face, but also you can see the cable here, it's getting squashed, which is what we want because it's following the motion of the head. And if there are any issues, you can add more user keys by tweaking the roto splines or set a predicted keyframe to a user key manually. And this will help train your SmartRoto assistant so it gives better predictions next time. Once you're happy and have added the corrected keyframes, you can click once again on Roto Sequence and it will start again, but it will add your new user keys to its training. Another instance might be that you like most of the predicted keyframes, which were created, and you would like to keep them. You can delete the ones you don't like and then tick Use Predicted Keys for interpolation, which means it will use the one you kept to influence its training in the future. To delete bad keyframes, you have a few sliders here, which are really useful. They allow you to adjust different filters to prune the keyframes, which are most likely to be wrong. So it's a bit like the camera tracker, with its ability to also prune out bad tracker points. SmartRoto works as an iterative artist-guided process. You tell the system which frames are correct and which ones need fixing, and with each adjustment, its predictions will get better and better. So you're driving the roto, not the other way around, so you always maintain full control and you can refine or tweak the results at any point later on. Essentially, it combines the speed of machine learning with the precision of artist-driven roto. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And that's any news about the future of that? When's it coming out? When can we get our hands on it? Soon. Thank you. Great. Okay. Thank you. So we've heard from Foundry. Let's hear now from Borisfx. We've got Marco Paolini, who's the Chief Product Officer at Borisfx, leading the design and development of silhouettes, empowering artists with precision tools, including ML tools for paint and roto. He's an Academy Award and Engineering Emmy-winning product designer whose innovations have shaped so many VFX portfolios and workflows. Marco, would you like to come up? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to show it live. So everything that I show you is in the shipping product for Silhouette, except for a couple things towards the end. Just in general, our Borisfx's ML strategy has been to create tools that assist artists rather than replace them. And all of the models that we use have been vetted. We either own the training data or have licensed it, so you don't have to worry about whether any of it's copyrighted. And a lot of the things that you'll see, the different models are cobbled together from various other models to give us the best result. And a bunch of additional training has been done on these models as well. So let's see here. I'm going to start with, for our matting, we kind of break it down into three pieces. There's MaskML, which does the initial segmentation. And you can segment either by putting dots on the object that you want to include, or create rectangles. Let me just reset this here. You can use rectangles to select multiple cars. These are on single frames, so you can create keyframes, and it will then use those as part of the matte generation process. The other way you can do this, and this came out of a customer request, was they wanted to be able to automate this. So you can use text prompting, and you can, and for instance, I'm going to say, let me put taxi. There's a little bit of reasoning that can take place. So I could type yellow car instead. If I want all the cars, I can type cars. Now, the beauty of this is that this can all be automated on the command line. So you can feed it a source plate, provide the prompt, and then it'll automatically hook up MaskML, which does the segmentation, and then MatAssist, which will do the propagation. So the the request was that this customer needed to do a bunch of temp comps, hundreds in fact, and needed to run these overnight. So they're going to have somebody look at the shots ahead of time, figure out what the prompts would be, and then they could go from there. Now, in MaskML, if I just jump back here, you see they're separate objects. When they pass through to MatAssist, this is stored as Cryptomat data, which as part of the, let me come over here. So you basically have Cryptomat. So you can automatically record this or render it to a multi-part EXR file. So then later, if you load it into Nuke, you can then add Cryptomat there and select the appropriate mats. So and that all can be automated. I'll show you the refinement of the mats in a minute. But it's just as far as what you can do here, you can type in jogger, and it should find both joggers. You can say woman in purple. So you can do things like tallest person, third person from the right. So there's a lot you can do with that. Although it's really no different than doing this manually, but it allows the automation. Yes, do that. So this particular shot, as some of the other presenters mentioned, it helps to have a denoise plate when doing the matting. This particular mat just used a rectangle. Let me just play the source shot real quick. So there's that. So in this particular case, we have a couple different models, 3. 2 are image matting, 1 is video matting. The video matting has been trained for moving images, so you get a better temporal consistency. Sometimes the image matting models, although they're made for still images, they do a decent job, but you just have to be aware of the edges. So in this particular case, the video matting created a hole in the eye, and so just have a couple extra nodes here to split it off and just create an inner mat to combine the two. And then this is the result. There's a number of methods to try and help with the edge as far as chattering. There are a number of ML nodes. There's the motion blur node. And if you look at this node, this particular node has, kind of looks like a drop shadow, but it's a compound node. So within it, it's using optical flow. Let me turn this up more. So you can use the motion blur. If I go in here, you can see there's an optical flow ML node where it's using the vectors to calculate the motion blur after the fact. So that's kind of a nice tool to have when you're using these ML matte generation tools. Let me jump out of this. Well, you saw it playing. I mean, my personal opinion is that as long as you have shots that are going to be as intricate, let me jump ahead here, is this, where it requires that kind of hair detail, there'll be a need for manual roto, and you can kind of see the type of precision that's needed. We often get complaints from VFX houses that will say we need it to be down to a 1/16 of a pixel in accuracy for the comps to look good. So we're always working on trying to come to those standards. So I think, in my opinion now, the ML matting is good for temp comps, for occlusion matting, holdout mats, garbage mats, and occasionally finals, depending on how much motion, how bright it is, again, how noisy it started out with. But these models are constantly being trained and improved. So let me jump ahead. So I'm going to kind of jump into prep. If somebody can give me a countdown in 5 minutes, because I didn't time myself, sorry. Frame fixer. So the retimer is an ML retimer. It's been trained quite a bit to not have artifacting, but we're repurposing that retimer as a frame fixer. And you can see in this particular case, there's flashes. And the frame fixer has, you tell it what bad frame there is and how many frames you need to fix. So basically, it's looking at the frame that needs to be fixed and what the duration is, and then it morphs between the two. So right here in this area, this is going right through now an area that had the flash. You can extend these techniques to removing whole sections. This section, he closes his eyes for about 40 frames. And just jumping through here very quickly, there's a stabilization. We have a DOD to kind of limit the area. Now the frame fixer has a duration of 153 to 193. And so within that area, it's just pulling out the area where his eyes are closed. And then we just have a little bit of a roto here. Then we destabilize it, and then back to a comp. So now if I come through this area, his eyes never close. So it's just morphing from the start to the end in between. So again, using the retimer, which is meant for something else, but using it for this purpose. I'm going to just quickly show this. This is not ML, but since Hugo was talking about how with CopyCat he like painted a certain amount of frames, we kind of have a somewhat similar workflow, but non-ML. So we're using Mocha to create a power mesh track. So we've got the mesh, and then using that power mesh data and using paint data. So if I come into paint, let me come into paint. You can see there's about 6 keyframes here. And let me show you the before. Some of the crumbs on the tomato, the cracks. I'm sorry, tomato. They're there. So we have those keyframes. And then Power Mesh Morph, jump over here. You can see we're doing a continuous mode, which means it's continually morphing between those keyframes from 28 to 37 to 57, 91, etc. And let me just go to the composite here. And if I play through it, so it's just taking those still frames, well, it's actually morphing just the paint stroke portions of it which have associated alpha. So anytime you paint silhouette, it's also painting the alpha. So you can get a number of, do a number of fixes this way by just painting just a few frames. Again, this was another client request where, you know, I know there's ways to do this with smart vectors, but they wanted to do it with as few nodes as possible. So that was the request. Okay, yes. The next thing is, if I jump over here too while I'm loading this project, the first tab here, you can see all these AI ML tools. So there's the denoiser, depth map, face ML, frame fixer, mask ML, matte assist, matte refine, motion blur, optical flow, retime. We have stability in here, and upres ML. So what's happening here is we have this shot, the face ML node has a number of segments, and it's cryptomat capable. So all of the, the various parts of the face that are selectable can be chosen. In this case, only the lips are chosen for alpha output. But again, you could pipe this in directly to an output multipart node bring it into Nuke, select the separate parts of the face, and do whatever you want with it. Within Silhouette, we're just using the Cryptomat in this case to use the lips, and then by default, FaceML, I'll just go ahead and play it here so you can see the tracking, will be used to treat the face and do a beauty treatment. And so we're using Beauty Studio. This is a little bit of a hammer here. Let me make this bigger. So it's quite blurry, but then we extract the detail, composite back some of the texture, and then we can color correct the lips based on that separate lip mat. So Roto also can be plugged directly into Cryptomat or outputs Cryptomat data. Just 5 minutes? Yeah, okay, good. I'm good, I'm on track. So that's FaceML. And I'll show you here too. We have the depth mat. In this case, we're using FaceML with a depth mat. This is a keyed depth mat. Let me come here to the cast. So that's what the depth mat looks like. This is kind of used for some basically relighting and displacement of this particular kind of lighting. So it's on her face where it's moving kind of as a grid. So you can mix and match these models however you like. So I'm going to show you one other kind of traditional thing that we have, and then I'll lead into the last two new things. The end of the fifth week. Okay, let me just show in 30 seconds one new thing. And so we have an ML point tracker, and that's not the one I want to show. Point tracker. So with the ML point tracker, what's kind of exciting about this is that you don't have to fuss with the search area or match size. You don't have to worry about like what channel it's going to track on, and it will automatically, once it loads the model here, it's going to go through. It's going to do occlusion properly, and it will also track off the screen. You can, of course, track multiple multiple points. You can apply any kind of smoothing, merging, multiple tracks, and if we kind of look here close at the accuracy, it's going to pick right up exactly on the eye and then go off the screen. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. So, thank you.
Okay, folks, thank you very much. We're going to give you a 10-minute break whilst we prepare the chairs. Do come back for the Q&A. 10 minutes only. Eat your heart out and come back in. Thank you. We'll get you if you don't. We know where you live. So thank you for coming back, ladies and gentlemen, and hopefully you've kept some sandwiches for me. I'm a bit surprised no one brought me any, but anyway, them's the breaks. So thank you very much for coming back. This is how it's going to go. We've got very limited time, so I'm just going to ask a couple of questions and then open it up to the floor. And if you could make your questions as kind of general as possible so enough people can contribute, that's great. So the first question I'm going to give is really to... ooh, yeah, thank you. Welcome, Adam. Thanks for joining us. You're a towering presence in the background, so thank you. We will have a question for you, I promise. So the first question is going to be for Adam, Hugo, W, Hugo, and Simon, and that is, it's fair to say that you're working at the boutique end of the market. Let's assume that you don't have R&D clout of the big multinationals, so you can't throw money and resources into development at the same scale. So how do you do R&D in those circumstances with the fast pace of change? How do you find time? Is it long nights after getting home, or do you carve out time at work? And also, do you have any recommendations for people in the audience of what they should try out now and what they should be doing right now? But tell us, how do you do R&D? So, Simon, how about you? Oh yeah, you have to switch the mics on. Technology.
Hello, is this on? Yes, okay. I'm at Vine. We're fortunate we have an R&D TD, who Peter Noble, who works with us. He's been doing a lot of development about de-aging and helping us with Gaussian splatting and a whole range of techniques. And essentially, Michael just really likes trying new technology, and he's been doing it for years. So I think that part of it is Peter's employed to just try new stuff, and sometimes it works. Recently on Lazarus, we had to do some de-aging, which was different to the Margot examples I mentioned earlier, and we just gave him time. So at the start of the project, it wasn't really there. By the end of the project, it did a shot almost on its own. For the machine learning tools that we were talking about here, it's just artists in their time, but it's during work hours. We don't work beyond work hours. So we just try to put time aside. So we put a week aside at the start of House of Guinness, and we just generally...
Okay, thanks. Adam Walker. So how do you carve out time for these tools?
I think I do have a problem that I spend a lot of time thinking about this in my free time. There's a lot of my headspace that's taken up by that. But it's generally exactly as we've seen in these talks. If you do have a little bit of time carved out at the beginning of a project for that R&D, test these ML tools. Most of the time, you're not losing too much time just trying it out and seeing if it does work. But we do have people at Untold that are developing these new age tools, and they're doing some incredible work, again, with de-aging, re-aging, stuff like that. So I think it is important to have time for this R&D, but at the same time, I think as we've seen from Borisfx and Foundry, they are developing the tools. We are using their tools. The same as before, they're developing ML tools for us to use. And obviously working with them and giving them feedback is very important. And yeah, hopefully that would just give us new lovely tools to play with.
And Hugo, what about you? What recommendations do you have for people in our audience who are at an earlier stage of looking into ML?
Well, speaking as someone that has a really small company, it's just a few of us that usually do these projects. I never had a project since I've opened my company with more than 15 people. And so we don't really have an R&D team, and we don't have those kind of people to do that. So it's always on our spare time. I usually dedicate, I think of it as going to the gym. That's kind of how I think about it. I usually dedicate a few hours a week just doing that. And so I have this kind of notion of the 10%. It's like 10% of my time is just dedicated to research and to fuff around with the software, test things. And I'm not really looking for monetary compensation for that section. It's just like playing around with it. I really think it's like going to the gym. So I advise everyone to just put apart some time to do that. Start maybe with 10%, maybe then go to 15 or 20%. Or maybe if it's easier for you, just make one day a week you just play around and test things. It's really important, not just for developing the skill set, but also as a great palate cleanser, because you kind of can relax a bit from the really tedious or really difficult project you might be doing. It might be good to refresh your mind with something else, So yeah, it's like the gym. It's like ML practice, I guess, or something like that.
Thank you. Okay, and this is a question. I should point out that Juan Salazar is here from Foundry as well, joining us. And I think, Grant, you're going to maybe be asked a question as well. Yeah, I'm just warning you now. And JP Smith is here as well. So we're going to ask you this question, really, and that is, you guys don't develop these tools in isolation, in a vacuum. So what are clients and what are people from industry telling you they want? Can you give articulate the kind of demands that you get from, the Bush Telegraph, so to speak, the people out there? What are they asking you for? Let's start with Juan.
The magic button. No, jokes apart. So I think there has been obviously a lot of development very quickly around AI and ML generally, and everyone clients look at it and go, oh, now we can do this, and they can do it with their own tools and everywhere else. But the reality to get it done for the shows that we work on, the type of work that we do, is very differently. So it's how can we bring that control to the workflows that we have? How can we actually give the artist the control? When we did CopyCat, and Adam can talk a lot more about it, but the main thing was how can we give the artist the ability to train themselves, right? It was around that. We knew that the data in the models weren't good. How can we give you the toolset without having problems with IP and actually think about the future of the industry? So it's not just how we can do it today and right now, but how can we make it a tool that really becomes useful for everyone in the shows that we work towards the future, and that's what we've been trying to do.
Thank you. And I'll bring Adam Cherbetji in now, if you can, Adam. So what kind of dialogues do you have with clients and people from industry about their demands? And sometimes are their demands, do they expect too much from the software?
I mean, we love how demanding our users are, and but feedback is actually really challenging for us. So Paul showed you Smart Roto. We're in the process of a sort of limited alpha of that at the moment, and finding people finding time in their production schedules to try these things out and give us feedback so we can continue to refine it. This tool is it's getting close, but we still need more work, and so we're working closely. We've been to visit Adam at Untold and lots of other clients to try and see where we improve the workflow. It's not finished, and we want to do it in tandem with people to make sure it really fits into the workflow. But yeah, some things come from user need, and some things like CopyCat came from our director of research, just this epiphany, which is you have data, we don't have data. Or as Juan said, all of the restrictions around IP, and that was born. No one had ever asked for CopyCat. It came from nowhere. So yeah, it's a combination. We love to hear what people need and try and build tools that address those needs.
Marco, what about you? Where do you pick up the demand, and is it realistic demand for what ML can do?
Yeah, I think we have regular meetings with our larger customers, either on a monthly or quarterly basis, and they're constantly giving us requests of or suggestions of actual models that they would like us to try and implement. So a lot of what we have is based on that. But they also understand the limitations, the time constraints, the rapid pace of model development, new things that are coming out. So we can spend a lot of time on a particular model and training it, and then all of a sudden something new comes out. So we also have to act quickly, and when we have something ready, we want to release it so that it's not eclipsed by something else. But I think for us, it can be exhausting because at the pace of how quickly this is all going. But we're just trying to keep up.
Mm. JP, what about that idea of pace as well, and how do you keep up?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I just echo what everyone said, that we absolutely thrive on getting feedback from people, and people are asking us for features, really guiding where we're going. But yeah, the pace, we've staffed up substantially at Borisfx on that ML side over the past couple of years to try to keep up with this. And we're very focused on, well, okay, something new has appeared. Does it have a potential application? Are people asking for something like that? And then can we retrain it to fit those requirements? Can we fit it into one of our tools in a way that is controllable? And as Juan was describing with CopyCat and some of the other tools, a lot of it is about we put this into a product and it has to have artist control around it. So all the things Marco is showing in Silhouette, we're spending probably as much time on the tooling as we are on the actual models, so that you can actually get a usable result out of it.
Thank you. Paul, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really.
No, okay.
I think Adam will have a lot more to say about it, but yeah, I think what people have said is great.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on because I really want to get to audience questions, and I know we've got very little time. So the next question, I guess, is for the new breed of new talent, and both Klaudija and myself work in education, and I'm sure there's students here. So one might get the mood music that it's not worth learning Roto and Prep because AI, okay? So how do you counter that, and what would you say to a student to encourage them to actually still have the skills rather than just sort of capitulate to what they see as the relentless march of AI? Paul, I'll start off with you actually, because you have a background in teaching as well.
So I think it's a bit of a myth at the moment that, you know, Roto and Paint is disappearing, because as we're seeing with AI, it still needs a lot of prep and actual like work done on it for it to make it usable. So we're seeing a lot of jobs around AI, so guiding AI, prepping AI, and making AI usable, or fixing issues that it's creating. And all those bring in Paint and Roto to fix them. So that's what I'd say. And yeah, and to all those people that are actually going to look into getting into the industries, looking at all these different machine learning models and what tasks you think are going to be created to fix issues that AI is creating.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hugo, you're also involved in teaching and training, so what's your take on how you persuade young people, I say young people, but I mean any new entrant who's interested in getting into the industry, about the non-futility of learning Roto and Prep?
Yeah, it's a big problem right now because, you know, I get emails from students, from either my students or subscribers or people that watch my videos almost every day. I think sometimes more than one day. Like, oh, what's the point of learning this? Why should I even bother? You know, compositing is dead, or Roto is dead, or Paint is dead. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And so I think, and once you talk to them and once you show them, okay, yeah, well, if you do this and do that, and you need to, like I was showing on my presentation, okay, so you had to paint one single shot and I had to do like 5 or 6 frames, perfect 5 frames, for the machine learning to actually pick up and do the other shots. And then when I passed on the learning to the other 7 shots I had, 3 of them failed and 2 worked and 1 worked. And so you end up like actually having a lot of work and actually painting a lot and rotoing a lot. So it's more a communication thing. I think the industry is maybe not communicating this correctly. Maybe it needs more videos and more tutorials and more training to really pass on the idea that it requires all this prep work as well for it to work. Because I think, unfortunately, the loudest voices in social media are the ones that are paying to be loud, and that's why you have all that doom and gloom of the death of Hollywood and the death of visual effects and the death of CG. It's really like paid engagement that you see on social media. So you need to just be careful and just not really look at it too much and try to ignore it a bit and really talk with experts and try to... I always have long conversations with my students, and after having those conversations, then they realize, oh, well, actually, I can try this and I can try that. And themselves, they start thinking of ways of using these CopyCat models and the CopyCat tools or other tools from Boris, and to try to evolve their work so that they can output 10 shots instead of just 1. You know, so I think it's a communication thing. I think all of us as seniors, we need to do better as well, communicating this and more, showing more as well.
And on that case of communication, I was going to ask Simon actually with regard to educating clients as well, because I guess you get people who will come to you with the latest version of Sora, and they've done some post-apocalyptic kind of stuff with it, with cyber noir stuff, and they'll say, look, I did this in 10 minutes, why can't you do it in 10 minutes? So how do you sort of educate clients into this area?
I just suggest they do it themselves.
Round of applause there.
Because at the end of the day, you say, why are you employing me to type the same things you can type into a machine? And the machine's just producing the stuff. It's nobody's producing it. It's just a machine. So if you want people to do it, then employ people to do it. But if you want a machine to do it, type something into a machine. But I think in terms of the skill sets, the thing that that in the UK does matter is the tax credit has changed. So the last 15 years, all Roto Prep has basically gone to India or Eastern Europe. And we are now finding we're not allowed. It's in the contract. You are not allowed to put that work outside of the UK. So we have a big skills gap because there weren't many people. People were entering, and then they were maybe going into comp and they were going to other areas, but people weren't in the Roto Prep arena, and we just don't have. We have entry-level people, and we have heads of department, and the heads of department often don't do the work anymore. So you've basically got a lot of. So there's a real potential for people to just learn it, pick it up. All the new tools that they've got will help as well to keep the costs down. You know, I'd say there's definitely a big gap at the moment, and it needs filling.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else want to approach that question about how we as a community educate clients and people who have the budget purse strings?
I was just going to add, as far as for like younger people, whether or not it's worth it. I still think that there's always going to be tons of shots that have to be done manually, where the camera's moving, there's motion blur. You know, these tools will, I think, ultimately fail, even in those cases where it needs to be very articulate. And, you know, you hear different directors, I had a video that I didn't play, but they're like, we will touch every frame in the film, doing various things, whether or not you see it or not. So those foundational skills of roto, paint, regardless of whether or not portions of those tasks become automated, are still very necessary, especially as you move up to be a compositor, having known all that. And again, especially at smaller facilities where the compositor is also maybe doing some roto and doing some paint and doing everything themselves. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. There may be a time in the future, but still, there's always going to be those very difficult shots.
Thanks. Adam, I can see your head, Adam Cherbetji, I see your head's nodding there. So do you have anything to say about how we educate clients?
Yes, managing expectations is a problem for all of us. But no, I don't have the answer. Okay.
But I would like to say more for the students and everyone, but it's the same. We are doing digital work, everything else, and we still tell compositors learn photography. It's just the basics, right? You need to learn how to frame a shot. You need how to understand light works. You need how to understand how to break a shot. That is compositing, right? It's just part of the work that we do regardless. Doesn't matter how much AI will generate stuff. We're going to have to break the shot down and separate things. And that's roto. There's no other way, right? I still need to tell it, I want this object, and break it down.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up now to the audience because we're running out of time. So if you've got an urgent question, wave at me right now, and I'll bring my microphone over. Yeah, it has to be somebody really far away. Okay, right.
Maybe it's urgent. Hello, Hannes here. This is maybe more a question for anyone in production. How much of these new technologies have affected your bids? Are you taking them in account, or are you still sticking with all the bids and then using maybe the difference in time for other things?
Yeah, it affected a lot, yes. So basically you're getting clients coming in and saying, oh, why is it so expensive now? Because you can just do it with one button. So yes, it's a problem. It's a huge problem. And I've lost countless and countless bids and quotes over the last 2 years. It's been a really difficult journey. And I had to lower my rates, and I had to lower the amount of money and increase the amount of shots. So it's definitely a problem. But also, like, I've also managed, this entire thing is also helping me to filter the clients I don't want. So, you know, it's also helped me to track down people that were just being bricks and just wanting less and less and less and more for nothing. So I think we need to learn to bid in a different way, for sure. I was briefly talking about that on my presentation, didn't really have time to go into it. But we need to start bidding in sequences and start bidding in actors and start bidding in types of mood shots. It can't really be frame by frame or shot by shot because it doesn't really work that way in CopyCat and doesn't really work like that in machine learning because you can pick up so much of it and then apply it to other shots and you can kind of like fill the gaps. So it's just, we just need to rethink how we quote, you know.
I wouldn't say I'm aware of it having a huge effect on us, I have to say. I mean, I think most of our clients have a better sense of how much it's actually going to change anything, our biggest issue is the cost of rotoscoping is much less when it's outsourced, and that has gone. So it's more likely to cost them more money.
And I did ask a question I haven't asked, which we talked about, and that was the idea of if you could give people an idea of Roto and Prep, how much of a budget is it? And if you could give me some ballpark ideas, and I know it's a spectrum because it depends what you're making, right? But can you give people who might not be aware, because Roto and Prep, of course, is invisible. You know, everybody knows the kind of gee whiz shots, but nobody knows how much Roto and Prep go into a film. And I think, Adam, you had a quote from me. Adam's going to tell us.
I specifically said before, I was like, oh, okay, that's quite a big question. I absolutely prefer to work in days worked. And I think you're right. The reality is Roto and Paint is very, very hidden. You can have hundreds of days of Roto Paint and no one will ever know it's done. Especially if you take episodic, for example, you're just doing very minor things that people wouldn't even think you were doing. I think I did really want to add that these tools, they very much have their work cut out for them. We have some absolutely incredible artists at Untold, and they can just get the work done way faster than I probably could back in my peak. And using these tools, yeah, they have to be as good, reach the same quality, and as fast as the traditional techniques. And I really don't feel like we're there yet. Absolutely. So I would really say that any of my new artists that I train, you need to train your eye. You need to figure out how to hit that really high quality. Absolutely use the ML tools, but we work in an industry where you have to hit that high quality.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions? You'll never get a chance like this again. And by asking a question, you'll stop me from asking my really cheesy last question. So, any other questions?
Are there any questions about badges?
Okay, then here's the last cheesy question, and this is for everybody, so feel free to just, chip in. If we repeat this panel in a year's time, care to make any predictions about what might have changed? Juan.
Really? Am I starting this?
Yeah, why not?
What would have changed? I think, yes. I think Hugo alluded to it on his presentation, and everyone has been saying it, like, we will be able to do some of this work way faster. That is a fact, right? I think that will have been changed. The question is, how much more extra shots are we going to have to do because we can do the work that much faster? And that I think is a question of, and it has always happened in the industry. Every time we do something better, a few of the shots come in and we have to do it more. So that I think that there will be a balance in between.
Yeah, I think the demands are just going to grow. So instead, if like a director wanted one elephant, they're going to want 6 elephants instead. And then for actual like segmentation and stuff like that, what we're actually seeing is, because there's not that much control, we're having to revert back in a way to traditional methods. So like if you look at ModNet, for example, now there's a new model, VitMat, which now uses Roto. So it's bringing back Roto into the game because it brings back more control overall. So there's a bunch of things like that.
I think at the moment, nobody is really using Gen AI to produce final pixels because of all the potential copyright issues. But pretty much everybody we speak to would like to find a way to do this, would like to have models they can use. So I think that this is something people are going to be working on a lot over the next year. And I don't know, maybe a year from now, there will be Gen AI models that people are comfortable using for final pixels.
I will predict that we will have better matte refinement models for silhouette, and I will hope, but also predict that we'll have spline-based ML tool, a solution, And if you need any, the Foundry needs any feedback on their tool, Marco at Borisfx.com. we can use it to see what's good, what's bad, and do something different.
I mean, I think my career tells me that in a year it'll be similar to this. We'll just be doing different shows. And I think essentially people, as long as there's somebody who's got a good idea for a story that they need us to help tell, then we'll be doing that, and we'll be using the tools that we have available to us. I mean, their tools have changed, but it's basically storytelling. If you don't have a good story, you can do however you want to do it, but it's not going to work. So I think that's the key. As long as people remember to keep telling stories, then that's what matters.
So Adam Walker.
I completely agree with that. What I've found very interesting in the last year is, obviously, Borisfx as a Foundry, they release these tools, and then everyone needs to figure out how does it actually work in production? What quality are we getting? What are the workflows here? You're spitting out these maps, you're getting them, but now what? How do we get it to final? And maybe the tools will get better if Borisfx and Foundry keep going, but it's still just going to be, there's a little bit of a lag behind how do we use these tools. And I could probably see in the next year, as we start using these tools even more, as Zach just showed in my presentation, we will be able to show clients things a lot sooner. And again, that could mean we get more projects because we can show, look, this is what we can do.
Thanks, Hugo.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said, but I think the Gen AI is really important there because I think it's inevitable as much as we like it or not. I mean, I don't particularly like Gen AI, and I think it's riddled with problems in terms of licensing. But that can be solved. It could be solved. I mean, maybe. Of course, it's going to bring a cost into it as well. So Gen AI won't be that cheap because then it has licensing. So, maybe it will change. Maybe it will affect the industry a bit. I do think it will change some pipelines we have. But I agree with you as well. Like that, we're figuring out the pipelines, and even us, the seniors, we're still like trying these things. And does this work? Maybe it doesn't. I'll just do it by hand. It's a bit like we're trying things and then figuring it out. But it's also really cool because I'm doing this on my spare time, and I'm like really figuring out cool ideas and cool pipelines and cool little things that I didn't expect. And then I research a bit on GitHub, and I go online, and then I find someone did this thing, and then I pick that up. And so it's really refreshing, actually, because you end up like rethinking your pipeline and trying to find a way, and it becomes a very collaborative effect. So in a way, I agree with you, it won't change much, but I think the collaboration and you basically looking for stuff is going to be nice. I definitely, I was really, I'll tell you from a personal view, like the CopyCat and the machine learning tools have really revitalized my way of looking at visual effects. I was a bit down on it, and this has really revitalized because I've been finding new ways of doing new things. It brought that creative spark because you're trying new stuff, and I was a bit fed up of the old stuff. So it's also nice in that way.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask Adam Cherbetji to actually play the Nostradamus, and you must know more than you're letting on about the future.
Well, I think that we'll see more.
So please.
I think we'll see more tools that allow you to work at scale. Something we're working on is a face tools project that allows you to extract geometry and PBR materials from a human performance, and then you can make your changes and apply those across a sequence of shots. So empowering artists to work at broader scale, not just fixing it once, making those changes that can be applied across whole sequences.
Thank you, and that was a neat...
Can I ask one question? Sorry. Just one very quickly.
Oh, hold on.
No, it's fine. I'm loud. What I was interested in, because this is changing the ball game, right? Because when I was starting in the industry, which was a long time ago, we were using software that had timeline, and we had an overview of the sequence of shots and so on. And then, you know, when we had to move into Shake, we suddenly worked on individual shots and never saw the context of these shots and so on. Does that mean now that, you know, a timeline editing tools are going to be integrated inside, or are we going to place this software inside? I mean, I know we have Nuke Studio, but for example, Borisfx, are you thinking about that?
And if not, why not?
We actually have a clip editor, a little bit of editing built in where you've got a timeline. What it doesn't allow you to do is apply effects within those clips that you've chopped up. It's more of like for assembling, you know, kind of like editing for compositors. Yeah, I think it really, I mean, I've seen some products in the past that that I thought were interesting, where like even Smoke or Socrato, which never came out, where they had a timeline and then each clip had a full-blown node graph built in. So, I mean, personally, I thought that was interesting because I came from editing. You know, I think for us it's important not to overload the product. We realized that we started in Roto, we added paint. Those are our strengths. We have compositing to the extent where artists and paint departments can finish shots. So I mean, I think we're trying to stay in our lane and focus on our core qualities, and then expand with the ML tools for assistance.
I will just say something there that is not, in my view, and this is kind of to your point, as long as we can tell stories. And I think that one of the things that is happening is we can tell stories faster, which means we can iterate faster, right? And the only way to get to a good story is how do you iterate and collaborate, as Hugo was saying. How can we collaborate more of us in that story? I think one of the things that has happened throughout the last decade or so is that we were doing so many shots that a lot of the people involved weren't actually involved in the story. And it's how can we actually tell those stories? And I think that is part of how we can create software and the experience. It's not about the timeline as an editorial tool necessarily, but how can we actually help you create those stories and be part of that storytelling process? And I think that's something that will change. And I think that that's something interesting to think about, is how can we get to do that?
Thank you. We must bring it to an end now. We were never going to cover the whole field, but I'd just like to ask you to a round of applause for our wonderful panelists. And in a world where we hear so much about the future and we see so much Gen AI slop, etc., it was really good to see evidence of stuff being used now, being tested out in the field, case studies, and you know what. A strong message came across that human control is paramount, and giving the artists the tools so that they can keep control and keep creating amazing stories. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming. And this isn't going to be the end of the conversation. I'm sure VES will do other events which will follow on from this. So thank you very much for coming, folks. And do eat some more sandwiches.
Bye, Adam.
Oh yeah, I forgot to.
Bye, Hugo.